All right, college football and stuff here. Gus Malzahn is out as Auburn's head coach, and I'm really not sure what to think about it. Now, I'm not going to pretend that there weren't times when, as an Auburn fan, I was frustrated with the product that Gus Malzahn put on the field. It seemed like for the past few years at least, and really I think the entire time that Gus was head coach, Auburn was a team that was almost great, but was never really a great team. Went to the national championship, of course, in 2013, but let Florida State have a huge comeback and win that game. Beat Georgia and Alabama in 2017 when they were the #1 ranked teams. Did them beat Georgia, then had a nobody, and then beat Alabama, and then lost to Georgia in the SEC championship, and watched those two teams go on to play for the national championship that year. So it's been one of those things where the team has almost been there a lot of times, and it was really frustrating to see the team be that close to being great and just never really quite getting there. Now, this has been coming for a while, I think. The people with money behind the scenes at Auburn had made the decision that they wanted Gus gone, and it's, I think, been one of those things where Gus has won a game that has saved him every year, and it just didn't happen this year. I don't know if the Texas A&M game would have been enough if Auburn had won that game. They may have already made their minds up. I'll talk about that a little bit, because I think if they did that, sort of the timing was maybe like the gentlemanly thing to do, but overall for the team, I don't think it was a great idea. But so got those big wins in 2017 that got Gus a huge contract extension when sort of there was rumors that he was going to go to Arkansas. Last year, the big win at the end of the year over Alabama. I think that saved him from being gone last year, that and the buyout. But yeah, it just didn't happen this year. So I think there are a few things that led to sort of this situation that Gus was in, and eventually Auburn getting rid of him. So there's some, I think, sort of like actual football product related things, and then some things that are sort of more behind the scenes. So as far as like the actual way that the team played, I think the big issue for Auburn has been recruiting, sort of, and then especially recruiting for the offensive line. So that has really been the weak point at Auburn for the past few years. Well, that and inconsistencies at quarterback, and the inability of Gus to, I think it's a mix of talent evaluation and coaching, as far as building players up and making them better at the quarterback position. So really, I think this goes back to the 2015 season. Jeremy Johnson was supposed to be the next big thing at Auburn. He had played as a backup the year before, and looked pretty good in his backup role, but had never been the starter. And that season opened up with, I think we played Louisville with Lamar Jackson getting his first ever college start, where he threw an interception his first, Lamar Jackson didn't start the game, I don't think, but he played. first ever college pass interception thrown to Auburn. Auburn won that game, but it was pretty close. It was mostly on the defense. Then Auburn played Jacksonville State, an FCS team, at Auburn and went to overtime. And that season ended up being the worst season that Auburn had while Gus was here. And it really came down to poor play from the quarterback. But I think a big part of that was issues on the offensive line. I think Jeremy Johnson wasn't quite the player that people thought he was going to be. And I don't want to hate on the guy. You know, I think he's a good guy. I don't think he was quite an SEC caliber quarterback. But there were issues on the offensive line, and that made him look a lot worse than I think he really was, where he got constant pressure, and you hear some analysts talk about it, but he got happy feet, where he didn't trust the O-line. He knew that pressure was coming, led him to make bad decisions, to scramble more than he needed to not be able to trust the pocket to stay in it and make the pass. That was a continual issue at Auburn since 2015. The year Auburn went and played Clemson at Clemson, I think Auburn gave up like 11 or 13 sacks in that game. It was a horrible game to watch. And Auburn had a chance of winning that game too. It ended up being like 13-7 or 13-6. It was a very tough game to watch because Auburn's defense played amazing, and the offense just couldn't get anything going, mostly because he couldn't protect the quarterback. And then you saw that a lot in Jarrett Stidham's second year, where he obviously did not trust the line to protect for him, and you really saw kind of a regression from the 2017 to 2018 with Jarrett Stidham, who is a very good quarterback. I think you see that some this year, where you see Bo Nix not trusting himself to stay in the pocket because I don't think he trusts that O-line to protect for him. So I think the two big deficiencies that Auburn has seen are offensive line recruiting and quarterback evaluation and coaching. And I think those are the big on-field reasons why Gus Malzahn did not succeed here. Or, I mean, I think the guy did a pretty good job. He won 2/3-ish of his games, which is very tough to do in the SEC. He's not a bad coach by any means. But I think that's why he didn't live up to the expectations I think that Auburn fans and boosters had set for him. Now, off the field, I think Gus Malzahn is a great guy. He obviously loves the players. The players love him. I have supported Gus Malzahn mostly just for that fact. Regardless of how frustrated I got with some of these losses and some of these teams being almost great but not quite, it's been very obvious the players love him. He cares about them. I think he does an excellent job of what a college football coach's job really should be, which is coaching players and preparing them for life. I think he does an amazing job with that. I think he loves those guys. I think he does everything he can to help them succeed. And that, I think, is my favorite thing about Gus Malzahn. I think he genuinely cares about the players. I think he wants them to do well. I think he wants them to grow into successful people. And I think he really listens to them and cares about them. And I think you see that in a lot of these teams have really played for him. And he's never, at least in my mind, I don't think I've ever really seen him while he was here lose the team. But Gus Malzahn is a very private person. He was very cagey with the media. He did not like talking to the media about anything that he was doing. He was very closed off with practices. There was no viewing practices. And I don't think he did like enough of the schmoozing, I guess, that he really needed to do to keep these high profile like boosters and fans on his side. And I just don't think that's the kind of person that Gus Malzahn is, but I think you kind of need to do that at Auburn with the whole small town thing that Auburn likes to pretend that it has going. You really need to build into that. So I think that's really why he wasn't able to keep enough support to sort of stay in the position. Because I really think if you look at just the record, he's done a pretty good job. I don't think he really deserved to be let go. I think he's going to find some place to go. I think he will do decently wherever he ends up. I'm really going to be rooting for him. Now, as for the timing, I think this was decided a while ago, is my opinion on it. People had decided they wanted Gus Malzahn gone. This was the year they were going to do it. They just waited till the end of the season. I think that was maybe the right thing to do as far as treating Gus well. Now, I also think it was right to do it before early signing period so you don't have a bunch of players committing to the team and then immediately firing the coach. I think that would have been the wrong thing to do, although it probably would have been better for protecting the signing class, that sort of thing, for preparing for the next coach. Now, I really think with them deciding, or if they're going to fire Gus Malzahn this year, I think they should have done it after the Alabama game. Have a new coach hired now before the early signing period starts so that they can get some sort of class in. It doesn't look like Auburn is going to have a coach name before early signing day. I think that's going to be a big issue. The next coach is going to be very hamstrung by, I think, a down recruiting class this year. That's what it's going to end up being. Now, as far as who that coach is going to be, lots of names going around. I don't think it's going to be Hugh Freeze. People have said Hugh Freeze. Auburn is not going to hire Hugh Freeze. I do not see that happening. Mario Cristobal, people are saying. I think he's definitely a good recruiter. He's an O-line coach. I think that takes care of two issues that maybe Auburn has had. But Gus beat him last year in the opening game, kind of embarrassingly, and I really think a large part of that loss was on Mario Cristobal, mismanaging timeouts and game time and just a few things, letting Auburn come back and win that game. People are talking about Kevin Steele, and I really like Kevin Steele. He's a great defensive coordinator. I don't know if he would be a great head coach at Auburn. And I don't think that he's going to be any better than Gus Malzahn is. And that's really been my biggest issue in all of the seasons when they've talked about getting rid of Gus is, who do we bring in? Who's going to do better than Gus Malzahn has? I'm hoping Auburn had someone in mind when they fired him, because this person is going to be under a bunch of pressure. And he has big shoes to fill. Auburn is better off today when Gus Malzahn is fired than they were the day before they hired Gus Malzahn. I think he took this program and has brought it back from what was really kind of a down period. We had the one good season in 2010 when he was the offensive coordinator. We won the national championship, but Auburn wasn't a great team with Tommy Tuberville. We had one or two good seasons against a really, really mediocre Alabama team during those years. And I think Gus Malzahn has done very well, especially with how good Alabama and Georgia have been this past decade. I think it's amazing how well Gus Malzahn has done. I think it's going to be a huge ask to get someone who's going to do better than him. I hope Auburn does it. I hope we bring in someone who is a big enough name. I think recruiting is going to be such a huge issue here. And on that side, Auburn has really hamstrung itself because we are way behind Georgia and Alabama as far as off the field stuff goes. No football only complex. A few other things, just Georgia and Alabama are spending so much money in football facilities and locker rooms and all this sort of stuff that Auburn is behind on. And that's the kind of stuff that recruits see, and it matters to them. They want to go to a place that's going to be fun and cool. And that's stuff that Auburn is really going to need to work to catch up on. And until Auburn does, whoever the head coach is going to struggle competing in recruiting against Georgia and Alabama. That's really all I have to say about the Gus Malzahn situation. I want to say thank you to the guy. I probably won't ever see him. He's probably not going to watch this video, but I appreciate everything he did for Auburn.